It is the Blue Room. It is your weekly show, and we are getting close to the mid-season break, the first ever mid-season break for a World Cup. And Everton ticking along all right, you could probably say, after a 0-0 draw at Fulham at the weekend. They've got Leicester at home at Goodison Park on Saturday under the lights, 5:30 kickoff, the last Goodison game before Christmas and before we all break, as I said. Joining me to speak about that and a few other different things today, Mick Greeno. Mick, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Probably just a bit like how you just described everything, just ticking along. Not too bad.
Fully into the winter grind. Now. Adam Sutton, how are you, mate?
Same as Mick, really, just ticking along. Not a fan of these dark afternoons I'm going to go for, actually. I think 1 o'clock today, I thought, this is depressing, isn't it? But yeah, ticking along. I do enjoy the Christmas period, but the run-up, it needs to either hurry up or just stay warm, and it's doing neither at the moment. So
that's the thing. People always get that excited about the clocks going back because you get an extra hour, and then you realise straight away the following week's like, all right, it's dark at 3 o'clock now, which is horrible. But and anyway, we've got Jake Mills back on the show as well. Jake, how are you doing, mate? It's good to see you still sort of going strong and supporting the Blues after what happened towards the end of last season.
And do you know what? Like I haven't heard from you for ages, and because things started being a bit better. But I'm glad that now Sam Allardyce has popped up again. You've asked me to come back on, so thanks for that.
I just thought, if there's a man I know who's going to have a lot of things to say about a 0-0 draw, it's going to be Jake Mills. So I felt like the time was right to reintroduce you back into the fold.
It's good to be back, thank you. And how are you, Matt? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. Like I'm just cold now. I feel all of me 33 years and getting chilled to the bone at this time of year. So I don't know how I'm going to cope on Saturday. I might go like full Everton down, have like a Bovril at half time. Ham warmers, long johns, all sorts to Goodison Park. But no, we'll see, mate. But yeah, you mentioned him there, didn't you, Sam Allardyce? He has joined Rafael Benitez this week. I think it's Benitez's second interview he's done since he left Everton, sort of saying that none of it was my fault. I think he actually said, Benitez, that the start Everton had to the season gave fans a delusion in what to expect from him. And then Sam Allardyce, who has started a new podcast. I'm sure everybody will be listening to this would be great to know. We'll be getting onto it straight away. It's called, wonderfully, the Not Tippy Tappy podcast, which I just thought was an absolutely fantastic name for Big Sam. But he had Duncan on. Adam's face there. It's marvellous. He had Duncan Ferguson on one of his first episodes. And unsurprisingly, probably because it was Sam Allardyce's podcast, Duncan gave him a glowing recommendation, said he should not have been sacked. All the players liked him, etc., etc. And I've been thinking about this one today, Jay, because I've sort of shared it and seen a lot of people talking about it. And I described it on Twitter as the most joyless time I've ever had as an Evertonian going the game when Sam Allardyce was our manager, and someone said even worse than Rafael Benitez, and I think I still think and I can't quite put my finger on why, but thinking back to those few months, it did feel horrible. Or was that just me?
No, I think there was a complete nothingness during that time. I think we look at Benitez and you look back, in hindsight, and I think history will tell us that was a absolutely horrific appointment, and it was doomed since day one. But there were some good performances at the beginning of that season. I think we were, we kind of did give Benitez that chance. There was times that we kind of half decent performances, goals. Sometimes I'm saying it was the most enjoyable of football that we ever watched. Certainly wasn't by the end of it, but at that beginning there was something there. And I remember talking about it, and everyone who wasn't an Evertonian who would ask you, you'd say, well, you know what? To be fair to him, he's doing the job. There was never any of that with Allardyce. It was just, I think, coming with Allardyce as well. I think we were coming down from. We bought into previous managers. Like we always thought this one's going to be it, this one's going to be it, this one's going to be it, and we were coming down from that. The thing that always got me with Allardyce was that I never ever felt that we needed to resort to Sam Allardyce. And I don't know if you remember, but Sam Allardyce absolutely played Everton. He played Everton like you would not believe, in putting himself up for it and then taking himself out of it, and he caused a panic. He caused a panic where we thought, oh my God, we can't even get Sam Allardyce. How bad must we be? So then going back into Sam Allardyce, who will have, I know we all we rejoiced when he said, oh, I'm not interested. We thought, thank God. And then to go back in for him, it just felt like absolute desperation when actually we weren't. It wasn't desperate times. It really wasn't. And the football that we played, people talk about Sam Allardyce's style and stuff. It was just the most miserable nothingness, and it just felt numb as an Evertonian to sit through that. So yeah, Benitez was bad, and we've had some bad times with other managers, but in my book, that was just a very numb period of time when we had Sam Allardyce. And I actually, until he done that podcast, I'd actually forgot that he was manager because I tried to drive it out of my memory.
Yeah, I mean it's mad, isn't it, Adam? Because that season we finished 8th, and then under Marco Silva, the very next season we finished 8th. And listen, there were low points in that campaign as well. But you think back to that one, there's so many more moments that stand out. The United 4-0, beating Arsenal, beating Chelsea at Goodison Park. There are a few other good performances away from home along the way that campaign. And so it just goes to show, doesn't it, that numbers and finishing positions don't necessarily mean everything, because you look at that season when we finished 8th and the following one, and they're completely contrasting, aren't they?
Yeah, I think if we can do anything as Evertonians, it's at least go the game and have some form of enjoyment, really. And I think Martinez, as much as anyone, was probably the perfect example of, we might win 5-4 one week and then get beat 3-2 the next week, but at least we're showing some signs of excitement and playing in a way that Everton fans are getting up off the seat for. And with Sam Allardyce, it really was just drab, wasn't it? And we became, as a kid say now, a meme, which is genuinely what Everton were for a period of time. If Sam Allardyce has managed your team, you're a meme, really, aren't you? Because he is the epitome of just Brexit, rubbish, low block football, and Everton were that. And looking around at some of those players in that team as well, you can say how far we've come. It just is, again, just goes to show that if you have an inconsistency in terms of tactics, in terms of direction, in terms of management, in terms of coaching, then you might finish in the same position a couple of years, but then you're very quickly going to find yourself at a loose end. And I think I always go back to Koeman as the real first domino in what happened last season, actually. And I think the likes of Sam Allardyce and Marco Silva were probably maybe heavier and lighter dominoes in that, but at a point it gets to a team which has got probably 90% of those players that have had different managers, and how you're going to be able to build a squad and build some form of ethos with those players, really. So yeah, I'm the same as Jake, really. I totally forgot that he existed, never mind managed Everton, and I won't be listening to the Not Tippy Tappy podcast if I can help it.
Yeah, I always remember speaking to Daniel Hewett, who does ITV News. He's a big West Brom fan. He said, Allardyce is like having a manager sponsored by TalkSport. And I think that's the best description that I've heard of him. But Mick, what about you, mate? What are your memories of that time? I suppose you were only a little lad back then, weren't you?
It's only like 5 years ago, Matt, Christ. But yeah, I echo especially what Jake said. I think that the club got massively desperate when it came to Allardyce, and I think he might have been appointed. I think there's the last game before, obviously, apart from the West Ham under Unsworth, was the Southampton away game. And I think, you think of that game, and all I can think of is, do you remember that pitch? And I think where the back line are all in a big zigzag almost. And I think that was it again.
Lining up for a rugby scrum, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think we had John Joe Kenny at left back, which is mad considering we had them there for a couple of games last season as well. But yeah, and I do think the club got it was horrific at the times, that little spell at the end of Koeman and under Unsworth. We think of the horrendous defeats against Arsenal and Atalanta and Burnley at home. But at the same time, I think it was a period a bit like now in the season where literally one result kind of can almost change the complete picture. And And it always gets me when Allardyce says that, he came in and Everton were 17th, 18th in the Premier League, and I think, bear in mind, I don't think we were that bad, but I think we might have been about 16th. But for his first game off, I think it was Huddersfield at home after the West Ham. I think Everton were already up to I think we were already up to 13th or something. So the way he kind of describes it as some sort of, amazing survival really baffles me. But they're obviously going to try and, point fingers elsewhere and try and paint the best picture of themselves. The one that got me in terms of what Benitez said the other day was how, I think he said it a few times now, how he didn't really expect our financial position to be as bad as it was. Which kind of baffles me a little bit, because you think you'd probably have those conversations before signing a contract, especially for someone who, I remember when he first joins over the pre-season, there was a lot of talk about doing an audit of the squad and the football club, and obviously a lot of people left in multiple departments because of that. You think
that was
he
it,
probably
wasn't it? Apparently he did an amazing PowerPoint presentation, didn't he? That was
yeah.
one of the things that he sold the owners on.
Yeah, but you think he probably would have done a bit of due diligence himself before actually taking the job. But yeah, and the two probably stains on the football club in terms of the recent history, and hopefully we don't have to go back to those dark days anytime soon.
I think with Allardyce, he's one of those managers where you'd almost want to be able to laugh at him with your mates or on social media, and almost actually like him in a way, because he is just almost an enigma in the fact that he's so embarrassing and almost so hateable that he's actually quite funny in a way with his demeanor. But then you actually remember that he was our manager, and you can't get involved in any of those jokes really, because we actually were a laughing stock as part of Sam Allardyce's tenure. So I kind of, in a way, want to be able to almost let him let myself find him funny, but I really, really can't. In the same way, I kind of wanted to let myself give Rafa Benitez a chance, but then looking back now, I think, why did we ever even do that? So, yeah, as Mick says, hopefully we'll never have to go back to those dark days and stains on the club.
I think for what it's worth, though, I do think Duncan Ferguson did get on with him. And I've seen a couple of things afterwards when he said, actually, I did learn quite a lot from Sam Allardyce. So it's not taking anything away from that and any friendships and professional, admiration or whatever he might have for him. But I don't for 1 second believe Duncan Ferguson thinks that he shouldn't have got sacked. I don't for 1 second believe that he thought that was not the right decision, because it absolutely was. Absolutely was.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to finish the discussion. I think you just think back to that time, and just not wanting to go to Goodison Park was just horrific. And it's speaking to people who went to, I went with at the time. There's so many times in games towards the back end of that season, you've just stood in the pub should we just jib it off today? Do we really want to go and watch this? But alas. Anyway, like you've all said, hopefully those dark days are behind us. These days we're doing much better. We're going to Fulham and drawing 0-0. Things are looking up. I'll come to you first on this one, Jay. It was always going to be a hard game in all seriousness. They're playing well. They've got a really good forward in Mitrovic. They've got obviously Marco Silva, who's got them very well drilled, very energetic. And I suppose the only disappointment for me was that after quite a good first half and what felt like quite an even game that either side could win, that Everton just kind of melted as any kind of attacking force after the break. And after 50, 55 minutes, it felt very quickly like the best we can do is get a point here, and it was about clinging on. But they did cling on and they did get the point, which probably is something they maybe wouldn't have done in previous years.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to come at you with all the cliches, because I completely agree. I don't think we would have. I think that's the type of game we would have lost. I think football is funny in it, because at the beginning of the season, after the end of last season, we talk about we have to be patient. We have to any improvement is good. Even if it's mid-table, it's good. We knew that the defence was shocking. We knew all these things. It was an improvement. It's not the most enjoyable thing to watch. there's frustrations. There absolutely is frustrations. There's frustrations about, particularly when we look so toothless, when we're not really carving anything out. But it's an improvement. We can't deny that. You know, you look at that back. You know, I think we were the first team to keep a clean sheet at the Cottage this season. You know, these are improvements. We would have lost that game previously. To get a point there is not a bad result at all. But like we always say, it's about then that next game. If you can then get something from Leicester at home, then actually you look back and that was a great point. But you have to. It's always then about that next game, because how many times do you win somewhere and then lose? You know, win against City and lose against Leeds. You know, these are the patterns that we need to stop and change. So if we can start getting draws at difficult away fixtures like that, then you know I can definitely see the improvement, and I'll take it. I'll take it this season.
Mick, you know, I saw Danny this week. He was sort of tweeting about the second half in away games and the numbers. You know, when Everton have sort of fallen behind, and when they've been trying to get ahead in matches as well. Do you sort of look at that and think that is a major worry, or do you kind of look at the first half in some of these games and sort of think that we are laying a foundation, at least in these games, that we can potentially push on from if we get better players and better patterns of play? Or do you look at the way in which we have just sort of ceased to exist as an attacking force at Newcastle and at Tottenham and a Fulham after the break, and feel like that's a big cause for concern?
I don't know if it's... I mean, it is a worry, but I don't think... I kind of expect it at this point. You know, Everton are very different, and it's probably been the case pretty much ever since Roberto Martinez, David Moyes period was over, and that Everton have been a completely different team at home compared to away. But the last couple of weeks, even the Southampton game, I know we won that. I thought we were, especially after we went ahead, I thought we were too. I think we're too eager to protect what we have, if you get me. And I know there's probably scars from the end of last season, or from last season altogether, even though quite a lot of the spine of the team has changed. But I do think we've got to do better. For the first half, we were all right, and the whole game itself probably summed up where Everton are at this season, and that we had decent spells without creating a massive amount of opportunities. We had obviously the Calvert-Lewin chance, and I know Gordon and Gray had a couple of opportunities, but you are talking one real big moment. And I think Tarkowski had a header from a corner. He kind of got free, but you kind of like clutching at straws to say we have an abundance of real good chances, and yet we still look a bit leaky at the back. Not in terms of like I've mentioned to you in the past on this and that. Yeah, we've got some really good individuals at the back, but we're still conceding a lot of opportunities, and there's only so much that, I mean, we've all seen probably the stats in terms of, Pickford this season. I think Paddy put it out on Twitter, and, he's probably arguably the best performing goalkeeper in the league at the moment, and is undoubtedly playing the peak of his career going into the World Cup. There's only so much you can probably rely on. That is, goalkeepers' performances fluctuate probably more than any other, player in position, if you get me. And obviously in the second half, we just kind of offered nothing, and it was back to the walls job again. And I think we're probably, as a fan base, we're probably all too easy to just latch on to the fact that Gordon and Gray are not given, just not producing enough, and that's absolutely a fact. But if any other wingers, I find it hard to see them being able to produce anything else in that second half, unless you're able to bring in real world-class quality players, which I don't think we're in a position to do, especially on both flanks. It's tough because you want to be able to think that you can go into those games against a newly promoted team and have a bit more to offer than we did in the second half. A point is still fine, like Jake says. I think I 100% would have taken a point before the start of the game, and it looks much better, even more if if we win on Saturday and get a point or win again against Bournemouth the week after. But the performance is definitely a bit kind of a bit worrying. Yeah.
Obviously, it could have been a lot different, Adam, had Mitrovic been sent off in the first half. I mean, I don't know what you lads all made of that tackle, but I was sort of watching it on Sky and listening to the commentary, and they were talking about it like it was, just a yellow. And I was looking at it thinking, that looks like a red to me. And then I saw it again and thought, that's definitely a red. And then I went on Twitter and thought, I need to make sure that I'm not just going a bit mad here. And everybody seemed to think it was a red. And I've not really seen anything to make me change my mind on it since me. It's all studs, halfway up his shin, dangerous tackle. Garner was obviously in a lot of pain. I just thought it was a bit mad that it didn't go to the VAR and that he wasn't sent off.
Almost one of those where it isn't even like classed as like a foul or a tackle, really, is it? Because he almost, I don't think he's gone out to hurt him. I know that sounds stupid because he definitely has. It's just mistimed, and it's just like brainless the way that he's done it. But he could have and nearly has caused serious harm by, as you say, putting his studs halfway up Idrissa Gana Gueye's leg, really. And it's almost as if they've gone like, oh, we didn't mean it. Like, we'll just give him a yellow. And no matter of fact, like, how many times would that happen over the course of a season where someone gets seriously injured, and if they go off the basis of what they've done for that tackle, then people would be getting hurt and people wouldn't be getting sent off. And I think there's been a couple of times, where I think back to like the Harvey Elliott one last season, where it's almost an accident. And I get it, it's an accident. But if he didn't break his leg, he wouldn't have sent him off. But because he has broke his leg, it seems to be enough force that he's going to have to give him a red card. And people are almost like forced into doing it. But what's the difference, really? If he didn't break his leg, so it's not a red card, it's absolutely baffling, really. And yeah, I think if he goes off and Everton are freed up in that respect, it could be a totally different game. But just going back to talking about us as an attacking threat, it almost feels like Everton are one of the only sides that aren't making the most of this modern day fullback that everyone is getting so much joy from, really. And granted, Nathan Patterson obviously offers a lot more than Seamus Coleman, and I think Vitaly Mykolenko was a lot better the weekend previous than he was against Fulham. And it was almost, you've got two good wingers actually in Fulham. I think Willian was brilliant, and I think Cabana is a good player as well. And you've got Deco Dover-Reid who can come and cause issues. And it's almost a catch-22 with the wide lads and the fullbacks, really, is Andy Gordon isn't having anyone to bomb on past him to give him a little bit of freedom to go and attack someone or run at someone. So he's almost one-on-one with his defender every time he gets the ball. And likewise with Damari Gray. He's brilliant, Damari Gray, when he can come inside, shuffle inside and create something, or he can go down the line and almost let someone bomb past him to get that yard. And it's almost that they're not complementing each other at the moment, where you've got two very defensive fullbacks and almost two very one-dimensional wingers, really. And you're not allowing them a little bit more freedom. And yeah, I think Nathan Patterson, hopefully coming back, will not just free up our forward options, but it'll probably free up Vitaly Mykolenko as well, actually, because I feel like the whole back line's compensating for Seamus Coleman. If he goes forward, then we almost look, where have you gone, Seamus? So therefore, neither of them are going forward. So hopefully a bit more balance in terms of Patterson coming back. I do like Mykolenko. I think he's been brilliant past few games. Defensively against Fulham, he was faultless. But I almost think that this modern day way of playing with your left back and right back bombing on, creating chances, also gives your wingers a little bit more freedom in terms of doing what they're good at.
Yeah, just on the wingers, Jay, before we move on to speak about some of the goal performances at the back, that's an interesting point from Adam, because you sort of look at Gray and Gordon and you think about their best moments in an Everton shirt and best moments as players, and it's not really linking up with a fullback. And the obvious example you go to, the best we've had in recent years, it's been Stephen Pienaar, wasn't it? Who was effectively a number 10 who played out wide and he'd bring other people into play. It sort of feels like the two wingers and the two fullbacks are sort of just playing on their own. They're not sort of in sync with anyone, and they're not like doing any kind of combinations. It's like Gray gets the ball and he's very tunnel vision. Gordon does the same. There's not really much chemistry between those four lads at all, is there?
No, and I think even when you see throughout the game when they're swapping sides and stuff, again, it doesn't really often make that much a difference either. Where sometimes you can see when you switch sides, then they're just giving the defender something else to think about and constantly penetrating. But no, it's not. But I think the point there about Seamus Coleman is absolutely spot on. But what it does is it shows how much can change through an injury. I know we've had a number of injuries, but Nathan Patterson was such a a shining light in that squad, taking them out. James Coleman's done a really, really good job, make no mistake about it. But so much just changes then, tactics just changes. The just having a second thought in your head as a player to go, oh, I want to be able to do this, but I'm not quite sure now because it is Seamus, saying, what are you doing, where have you gone? It just puts that little bit of doubt in somebody's mind where you can't necessarily have that creativity and that flow that we did have. As I said, Seamus done a great job, but I think Seamus is always going to be that player now, where I would expect to see Patson probably in against Leicester, and Seamus will be there, ready to do a job, and he can do a job, but that's probably where he's going to go, just so we can get back to what we were doing.
Yeah, and Mick, you mentioned Jordan Pickford a little bit earlier there. I mean, it's just kind of what we come to expect from him now, isn't it? I think what's been interesting is that he made quite a big mistake against Tottenham a few weeks ago, and go back a couple of years, and whenever Jordan dropped the clanger, it was a big discussion point for every Evertonian, wasn't it? And it'd be all we'd speak about on a lot of these shows. It'd be all what was in the sort of the press and that kind of thing. But it just feels now as though we've got so much credit in the bank that he just sort of can brush it under the carpet himself and move on from it. We as fans do it, and listen, it's not unwarranted that we've got this faith in him now, because he keeps producing performances like this, and it's sort of one of them where you go, yeah, that is kind of at the level we come to expect from him now.
Yeah, I remember thinking after that mistake against Spurs, that obviously he'd been in such inspired form up until then, probably since really March, February time, and I was kind of thinking, if something's going to maybe derail it, maybe a mistake like that is going to be it. But you wouldn't have, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe something like that. Obviously I always think back to the obviously the Derby thing and the Derby thing. But I mean, you know what I'm on about.
It's been a few, to be fair, a couple of a couple, yeah.
In Marco Silva's first season, and everything just kind of seemed to derail for a couple of months after that. Well, obviously for both the team and for Pickford, but he's been fine. He's been, I mentioned him just a couple of moments ago. I think he's been probably one of the best performing goalkeepers in the league, and I think it's, without doubt he'll be, the starting goalkeeper of the World Cup for England, and deservedly so. And yeah, I don't think really you can say much more other than I think there's probably a conversation to be had about his contract. I think there was rumours maybe before the summer or during the summer that we were close, or that they were in talks, and I don't think anything's happened since. I have a feeling he might be 12 months in the summer. So yeah, hopefully that can get sorted sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I suppose Adam as well. It's not going to harm having the centre-back partnership he's got in front of him at the moment either. And I think obviously they've both been really good, and they both sort of get bandied together, don't they? Cody and Tarkowski is like this sort of duo, and they emphasise that themselves doing interviews together and on BBC and all that kind of thing. But I just feel like Tarkowski over the last few weeks has just gone up a bit of an extra level. I thought he was obviously fantastic against Crystal Palace, and I just thought at the weekend again he just really showed his class and his aggression, and mixing that all together to deal with Mitrovic, and obviously not contain him fully because he had 10 shots, but to limit his influence on the game.
Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic, and he is the Dar's dream, and he just does everything you want him to in a way of, he's a defender first and foremost, which is what Everton have been crying out for. But I think what we've seen and what I was most surprised by with James Tarkowski is his ability to be so calm on the ball, and he's not just a go and head it Burnley centre half type of player. He's actually someone who can, as you say, make a defence feel calm, make your goalkeeper feel calm, get the ball, as we've spoken about, the new way of playing here, and having the ball basically on your 6-yard box as a centre half. And there's, he can mix it really, can't he, James Tarkowski? You can have your Alexander Mitrovic's and keep a clean sheet against Fulham for the first time in the season, but you can also have good performances where you're going forward and you're starting to play out from the back, really. But I just wanted that header to go in, and I think he should score, actually. I think it's centre of the goal. He's free. I don't even think he has to jump, really, and it almost comes at him a little bit quickly. he has it down, he does everything right, but you just want to put him in the corner. And yeah, listen, we're waxing lyrical about him. So he's got probably a little bit less credit in the bank than Jordan Pickford, but he's definitely starting to build that up because him and Conor Cody look absolutely solid. I think we said it, I think I've mentioned it on a podcast a while ago. Vitaly Mykolenko coming into the Premier League. There's a war going on in your country. You don't speak a word of English. The team haven't won in about 10 games, and you look over and Michael Keane's actually more scared than you. Whereas James Tarkowski is doing quite the opposite for the likes of Mykolenko, for the likes of Onana, for the likes of people coming into the side and starting to build a real foundation as the dads, I think they're known as. So, yeah, long may it continue. I think he's been, as you say, head and shoulders above most, but not far behind is Conor Cody and not far behind is Jordan Pickford. And if you've got a trio like that, you're not going to go far wrong.
I think they thrive off each other as well, though, don't they? I think, you know, that's what good players do and a good pairing do, is that they challenge each other. They'll thrive off each other. They give each other confidence. They feel like they can do more because they know that the mate's got the back. I think Conor Cody scoring a couple of goals probably is making Tarkowski think, I want to get a couple more goals. I think Conor Cody getting the captain's armband is probably thinking, actually, I want to be the captain. So I think not in a competitive way that is a rivalry, but in a really healthy competitive way. I think they just thrive off each other. And in all honesty, I think England could do a lot worse than taking them two at the back, but I don't know if I necessarily want them to.
What I think is massive with Everton's recruitment this summer period, and I know we were screaming out for just some form of solidarity, whether it's a players being a solid at the back player or someone just being able to come and gel a squad together. I think the way that Conor Cody and James Tarkowski have almost not had to change the external factors of their career to come and play for Everton. Cody talks about it all the time, that he's known and grown up around the club and his family are Evertonians, or he's lived round the corner. James Tarkowski, not much further really, obviously played for Burnley for a number of years. So it's almost like the perfect match really, in terms of everything outside of football it's stayed the same almost, and you've got that foundation of being able to say, I can just concentrate on my game here. And I think that goes a long, long way actually. It probably goes as far as Idrissa Gueye actually, coming back to somewhere he's familiar with, somewhere that he knows he's loved and knows that he almost gets the city. But at the same time, it makes a huge difference. And I don't think that's by any mistake that Kevin Thelwell has looked at them two and thought, they're not going to cost me much. They've been around the block. They know exactly how to play in this league. And actually, they're probably less than 10, 15 miles away from the stadium.
I mean, that's a great point. And, you know, like I said earlier, they do sort of get lumped together, but I mean, they are quite different in styles as well. You know, Tarkowski is very much that aggressive, go and win headers, throw himself in front of everything. And while there's obviously a bit of that with Cody, I don't think he's quite as mobile. He's more of a reader of the game and gets himself in the right position at the right time. So I think they complement themselves well in that point of view. And the other thing as well, and touch wood, and feel free, if this happens, everyone come and give me stick, but centre-backs not getting injured, just so important to be able to build a foundation on. And knowing that you've got Mick laughing there, he knows what's coming at the weekend. But it's just so good not to have to listen. I think everyone loves Yerry Mina when he's fit. I think he's a great player, but you know, having him back in the team for 2 games and then out for the next 5, and then bringing Godfrey in and he's out for a while, you know, it's hard to form any kind of foundations, isn't it? When you've got 2 lads that you know, listen, they might be limited in some aspects of the game, but if you know they're going to play pretty much every week, they're going to build up chemistry with each other and the rest of the team, it's a great starting point. Just quickly, lads, on to Leicester at the weekend, Mick. Just a bit of a weird team, and never really know quite what to expect when they come to Goodison. They always feel like tight games. Obviously, we got that very dramatic equaliser against them in the 94th minute last year through Richarlison, one of his many deflected goals, I think, towards the end of the campaign. They've been a bit ropey to start the season, but look like they're getting a bit of the groove back again. But I've watched them a few times. I think they're completely settled yet. I still think they are pretty poor at the back. They made a few changes there. They've obviously got a new goalkeeper in as well. And it feels like, again, if we go and approach it the same way as Palace, play the same way as we did against Palace, then we can definitely turn them over.
Yeah, I think Rodgers was pretty much on the verge of the sack a couple of weeks ago, but I think they've settled without being spectacular is probably the best way to put it. You know, they were all right against City, but they got beaten. I think other than that, I think they've been unbeaten really in the last couple of games. Before then, I think they beat Wolves 4-0, and they had like 4 shots or something like that, something ridiculous. I'd love that type of efficiency at the weekend, but I just haven't looked before the game on. I think that game against Wolves, they're the only points they picked up away from home this season. So whilst they have picked up a bit of form, it's predominantly been at home in terms of beating Leeds and Forest, and they got a point against Palace as well. So I think on paper, and I know Leicester probably on paper a better team than us. I think with us being the home team, you'd have to favour us, and you'd probably go in expecting a victory. To be honest, we mentioned before, and I think it was Jake who said it as well in terms of the viewing the point of Fulham as a good point of you can then go in and pick up 3 points at home against Leicester the following week, and I think that's got to be the only way to look at it really. I think they've obviously got quite a lot of threats. I think Maddison was suspended last week or the week before that and is back this weekend. And obviously Jamie Vardy, Yori Tillemans, they've got a real abundance of quality players, but like I mentioned before, Everton at home and a bit different to Everton being an away team. So I think you got to expect you're not got to expect Everton to win, because you can't, considering especially the position that the team is in, expect Everton to win any game. But I think you've got to expect a much more complete performance, and I think if you were favouring anyone to win the game, it would be us as the home team, and hopefully we can get 4, maybe 6 points from the next 2 games. I think we've ended the first stint of the season very strongly.
They come across to me, Leicester, as you can get at them. They're almost fragile in a way that when they're at home, I don't know where I've got this from, but they almost seem to play every home game that they win at 3:00 on a Saturday, and that's it. And it's almost like they go by how they have always gone, and comfort, and we know what time we're turning up, and we're in a bit of a groove, and we're at home, and we know where we're meeting, and all this stuff. And they seem like they're in a little bit of a floating phase with Brendan Rodgers, and he was probably very close actually before turning around a couple of results. Whereas I think on Saturday, under the lights at Goodison, don't know if they're playing tomorrow or not.
Leicester?
Yeah.
No, they're not in Europe this season, are they?
Oh, right, okay. So either way, I think there's a chance for us to almost hit them cold and travelling up to Merseyside on the Saturday. It just feels like a team that if you can get at them and you can almost play on their weakness, then you should give them a good run around. Probably similar to Palace in a way, actually. They don't travel very well, and you've got players there who, if you start to dominate a game in midfield especially, then you could actually be in for a really good result. So the 2 centre-halves to me are a big one you can get at. Not impressed by either of them actually, and I feel if we can score early and impose ourselves on the game, then we've got a good chance of winning. It's just all about how Frank Lampard sets up here, because I do think they have got pace and they've got threat on the break, but it's almost, if we let them get into their groove, then it could be harder than it wants to be actually. If we can hit them early and start to be on the front, we've got a bit of not free hit here, but we've started the season decent, better than what obviously we thought it may have been. So there's no reason why Everton should go for this like they did against Palace and really start to flex their muscles in terms of attack and intent. So yeah, never ever confident obviously, but I think if Everton can start the game well and apply some pressure to Leicester, they could easily fold.
Yeah, the lad they signed in the summer, is it Ice? Did you pronounce his name like that? It looks a bit like David Luiz. He's got the look of a lad that Calvert-Lewin could have for breakfast, really, and you'd expect him to sort of dominate him.
If you're Dominic Calvert-Lewin on Saturday, if you're Frank Lampard or Frank Lampard's staff on Saturday, you're saying to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you've got to arrive now. This is where you've got to look at players and start thinking, I can bully you. I'm better at what you're thinking you're good at, going to head the ball or whatever it may be. Dominic Calvert-Lewin needs to really be a figurehead for Everton on Saturday. And as you say, Matt, if he's playing against a lad who is not at the greatest start to his Premier League career, then you've got to start bullying people and you've got to start taking advantage of it.
I personally, I think only a win is good enough. To be honest with you, I think last home game before Christmas under the lights, these Palace are better than Leicester. I'm not saying I'm confident of a win, but I think that we should be going in for a win, and I don't think a point is good enough, to be honest with you. So we need to be going for that win.
Just very quickly, just to anyone, I think Jake, you mentioned about Patterson coming back in. I think that seems like a smart decision, especially against someone like Harvey Barnes, who's obviously very mobile and direct. I feel like Seamus might struggle against him there. But any other changes you'd think about making? Is it one way you'd bring James Garner into midfield, or you'd look at Dwight McNeil maybe on one of the wings, or do you keep it very much the same?
It's a difficult one for me. I think Patterson is the one that I would definitely make. I do like the look of Garner when he comes on, and I do think that McNeil can probably be the better of the wingers, especially with Calvert-Lewin up front. But I don't know. I think if we only went for a Patterson change, I wouldn't be complaining too much.
Yeah,
inclined to agree. I think it's time for Nathan Patterson to just come straight back in, and as Jake said before, Seamus Coleman's been brilliant in doing what Seamus Coleman does, but time to change in, and it's time to pass the baton on to Nathan Patterson, who I think is, at the start of our season, probably top 3 players in terms of just bringing a little bit of something different to what Everton have been screaming out for. Attacking intent, as I mentioned before, almost freeing up the likes of Anthony Gordon. And I'd actually like to see, as much as maybe Anthony Gordon would possibly be the second man on my list who could be making way for Dwight McNeil, even Damari Gray, actually, just to freshen it up. I'd actually like to see Nathan Patterson and Anthony Gordon combining on that right-hand side on Saturday, and hopefully start to build a bit of a partnership, because we can say that the likes of our wingers aren't giving us much, but we need to start giving them something behind, which is a little bit of a solid foundation. So if Nathan Patterson can play a run of games and Anthony Gordon can, then hopefully it starts to create a partnership there.
I think the last time they played on the right-hand side together, they had that massive argument, didn't they, against West Ham? Do you remember when Gordon wasn't tracking back? I think Patterson went ballistic at him. So let's rekindle that. And just very finally, lads, before we wrap up, the World Cup starts in less than 3 weeks. Is anyone feeling excited or looking forward to it, or marking off games that they desperately want to watch, or even know who's in what group? Because I think usually, obviously, this time in the summer, you've got your wall chart. Mick's definitely got a wall chart, hasn't he, with all the games on and all that kind of stuff, marking off all the XG for each game and all that kind of stuff. But is anyone feeling excited about it? Mick, are you ready for the World Cup or not?
I think it'll be nice to have a break from the Premier League, to be fair. It's such a weird one, isn't it? I don't really agree with the World Cup being in around November, December time. I think that the vast majority of people will agree with me there. I think there's a lot of reasons to not really be in favour of the upcoming World Cup. But ultimately, it is what it is, and I think it will be as watched as it normally is. Sorry, every 4 years. It's funny actually you say that in terms of what groups or what countries are in what group. I was having a look at some of them actually early this morning, just because I was having a look at a certain player and I wanted to see if he was going to the World Cup. So I know what group Japan are in, but that's it.
I genuinely couldn't tell you like many teams that are actually going to. If you said to me that like Germany weren't going to the World Cup, I'd believe it really. The only thing I'm excited about for the World Cup is it's at that stage where probably 2 things. When I'm working, I'll watch Switzerland against Costa Rica at 2:00 on like a Tuesday afternoon. And I think this is amazing. And then it's almost like over the Christmas period where you've got a day out with your missus or you're going out with the lads, and it's almost like a part like, actually we'll go out on a Saturday because then at 7:30 we can go to here and watch that game. And that's all I care about really, just having something to almost make an excuse for going out and having a pint and watching a bit of footy. Other than that, I couldn't care less. And probably, as Mick said, not having to be bothered about what the actual scores are. If England get knocked out, I will literally go, sound. If Everton don't win a corner when it's a goal kick, I'll find myself getting pissed off for the rest of the night. And that is the difference between international football and club football. So bring it on. Bit of a stress-free Christmas for once in our lives.
Yeah. What about you, Jake? I think the group stages, like Adam alluded to, they're always the best, aren't they? I think there's a few days during this one where there's 4 games on in a day, which, you know, is pretty marvellous, to be fair.
I like the World Cup. I like the Euros. I do like to see football and footballers I've never heard of before and just get into it. But I seen something the other day that said, like, you know, in a couple of weeks or something, it'll be this game. I'm like, my God, like I know it's soon, but I just can't get into my head. So yeah, I'm literally, as you're talking there, looking at the groups because I didn't even know anything, and yeah, I feel like it's just going to be one that's just going to pass us by, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I am a little bit concerned about what it's going to look like afterwards, and you know, I think there's a lot of clubs who are probably going to do well from the World Cup because certain teams haven't made it and players are out injured and stuff. So yeah, it'll remain to be seen what the effect of the World Cup's going to be, and that's why, although I think England could really do with Cody and Tarkowski, I'd rather they didn't go.
Yeah, 100%. We're on the same camp there, but I'm sure when it's on, we'll be all well into it. Going out for a pint with Adam, watching Costa Rica versus Switzerland. Sounds great. We will leave it there this week. That has been your weekly show on the Blue Room. As ever, if you want to hear more from us, we are over on Patreon, patreon.com/the Blue Room Extra. Loads of content on there building up to the weekend's game and the World Cup as well. So cheers to Jake, Adam, and Mick. That has been your weekly show. Up the Toffees. We'll speak to you soon.